Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. We have finally received some new information about Underrail 2 Infusion, which of course is the sequel to the much heralded isometric CRPG Underrail. I did about a 2 or 3 hour live stream of Underrail last year, but I never actually finished that game. But despite that, I still am very excited about this sequel, and most likely I will cover it on the channel. So they dropped a lot of new information. Let's go ahead and get into it. So right off the bat, you can see in the footage, this looks like a major step up from what we got in Underrail. First and foremost, the sprites look extremely well detailed, and it's obviously a 3D world now as opposed to the much more flat world we were given in the original title. It's super cool seeing all of the items that you equip onto yourself actually on your character. They had this in the original game, but it looks much better now. One of the interesting things to note from their Steam page is that the realism goes beyond just the way the sprites look and actually extends into how NPCs react. So this is going to be a fully dynamic world, meaning NPCs will have their own schedules. They'll be able to interact with computers, walk into areas that technically they're not supposed to be in. And just in general, there's a lot of things that can happen that are outside of your control. It's the same way with the enemies that you can end up facing. They can also end up walking into areas where technically creatures or enemies are not supposed to be. And I'm really looking forward to experimenting with some of that and finding out if there's an easy way to take out two groups by just getting them to somehow meet. That should be super cool. Speaking of enemies meeting, combat looks absolutely brutal. So they showed off some combat scenarios with both katanas in melee and some burst fire assault rifle action, which actually looks fantastic to me. In fact, I think I'm gonna go with an assault rifle build when I'm finally able to get the game in my hands. There is a great variety of enemies that are shown off here, from the bandits to bats to rats to beetles that you can go up against. And my understanding is if you go through the entire first game, it's the exact same way. So that should be really cool. And I'll be interested to find out if you have to use different tactics based on the type of enemies that you're facing. But regardless, combat looks nothing short of brutal. The game is atomic turn-based, meaning that it is turn-based from the standpoint of you get a chance to take your time and do your turn, but then it's atomic from the standpoint of your turn takes a certain amount of time, and then all the enemies you are going up against can use that same amount of time to do whatever it is that they want to do. And so oftentimes enemies will move all together, or if they are in range, they can be able to attack within that same window. And honestly, some of the encounters of this footage look flat out terrifying. I hope for those of us who plan to use ranged weapons, there'll be some efficient ways to try to stop enemies who want to close the distance with us and hack at us while we're trying to get rounds off. I'm hoping that maybe, if you're using shotguns, it can knock enemies down, or if I can mod my assault rifle ammo in a certain way, maybe it can slow enemies, something of that sort. But hopefully there are some interesting options. There is supposed to be a nice variety of different weapons you can work with, from firearms that'll include assault rifles and pistols and other options. Melee weapons, of course, will include bats, katanas, and other weapons you can hold in your hand. And there will be energy weapons, which should be really cool to try out as well. It appears this won't be available when the game first releases in early access, which is supposed to happen next year, but they do plan to add psionic combat into the game, which of course was a part of the first game as well. And psionic combat is basically this game's form of magic, and you having powers that you can use in combat, and I believe during exploration as well. In addition to all of this, there is going to be an in-depth crafting and modding system in the game. So they showed off some of the weapon mods you could put on. All of that looked really, really cool and should make it even more fun to search through all the different lockers and containers and see what interesting gizmos you can attach to make your weapons and armor even better. Hacking looks really, really wild as well. Apparently, the computers in this game are going to be fully functional, where you can look through different folders and items that are on the computer. Of course, you'll have access to cameras and doors and things of that nature. Seems like hacking is going to be something very, very useful for you to have access to. Very, very useful for you to have access to. Now, they did show off a lot of the exploration in the game, and I'm really, really impressed with how they use lighting. This was a big part of the first game as well, and it helps to reinforce that a big part of playing Underrail is that you have to be prepared. This is a survival game where you're never going to know what's around the next corner, and to the very best of your ability, you have to pretty much be prepared for any situation. And then the last thing I'm going to say about this section is that Underrail 2 definitely looks like it's going to be as difficult as ever. Difficulty was a big part of the first game, and I'm sure Sticky and Software is doing everything in their power to craft an experience that is going to be just as challenging and demand that the player use all of the resources at their disposal. Now, with all of that being said, let me get into a couple of reservations. First and foremost, I haven't heard anything really about what the story is going to be. I know, of course, the story for the original one is that the game is set in a future where the Earth's surface has basically been wiped out and it's not possible to walk around on it. So humanity is stuck in the Underrail, right? This metro station system that everyone has to figure out how to live within. And in this sequel, you're going to play as someone who's stuck in one of those stations, and then the story will just progress from there. But what the narrative is going to be, we have no idea, and don't really know all that much about how dialogue and persuasion is going to work either. I'm really curious if Underrail is a type of game where you have to have ranks in a specific skill in order to be a persuasive person, or if we're going to get a system more like Outer Worlds 2, which frankly has kind of spoiled me, in that if you're thorough about doing different quests and hacking into these computers, picking up notes and learning more about the world, in turn, you're going to get a lot more options to be able to persuade people and potentially get the results that you want. I don't really play games for challenge. I always play them for narrative. I don't mind games that are very challenging, but I require a great narrative for me to feel like it's worth going through the challenge. And I think that's probably part of my hesitation about getting back into Underrail. It wasn't clear, at least from the little bit that I played. Again, I did not experience a whole lot about that game, but it wasn't clear that narrative was going to be a big focus. It seemed like really the survival elements and the combat were going to be the major focus of that experience. Not clear if that's actually the case, because again, I haven't finished the game, and I'm not clear if that's going to be the case here. So I'll definitely continue to monitor their marketing and what they release regarding this adventure, and I look forward to experiencing it for myself sometime next year. Anyway, that's the video. That's all the information I have as of right now. So definitely please leave me your thoughts down in the comments below. Let me know if you plan to play this or check it out, and let me know if there's any other content you want to see regarding this game. Definitely hit that like button if you've enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you're looking for more Underrail content. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.